Hello, my name's Joe, and what we're going to be looking at in our little Houdini adventure is the next part of creating our tube ladder, where we're going to add a tiny little bit more detail to it. If you find this helpful, please like, subscribe, and hit that bell for more videos, and don't forget to check out my website 3dassetlibrary.com for Unreal and Unity Engine assets. So, what we did last in our the last part of our video is we created this very simple ladder, and what it's doing is it's basically we created a line that can control the height. So if we go to height here, when this height moves, you can see here that it's automatically adding a step in or decreasing the step depending on which way you're going. And we also added a thing in here so you can control the width. If you so say some painters and plasterers have wider ladders, so it just gives people the option. We can obviously add the amount of steps if you wanted a ridiculously long ladder. Some ladders have less steps, things like that. So what we're going to now do is, in the previous video, we're trying to work off something simple like this ladder here, and we're going to add these little holes in and try and add some weld in here just to add a little bit of, so it looks a little bit more interesting rather than just here's some tubes stuck together. So what we'll do is we'll go to our... First of all, what we'll do is we'll just tidy these up. So what we'll do is we'll select this one. So select them all, and we'll click this little icon here, and this puts it in a little sort of organizer. Believe it's called, it's a network box, that's it. And we'll name this main posts. It's good practice to keep these tidy, because although obviously currently we're only learning, but in the future someone else could be looking at these, and you need to make it clear what they are and what they do. And what we'll do is we'll select this one again, do that. Actually, you know what we're going to do is we're going to select all of this because it's all grouped, and we're going to name these steps, spelt right now. And I'm just going to drag the height out of there because that's really a controller. And then what we're going to do is click on width, press C on the keyboard. I'm going to just put those at green there. Let's go to dark green. No, yeah, we'll leave it at light green. And reason being is that so that when we're looking at our network view, you could do these any colors you want, but when you're looking at the network view, green is something that we can go to and control. So now what we're going to do is we're going to go to our step section here. So what we want to do is we want to be looking at the part where we actually created the initial step. So what we're going to do is, so what we want to do is just after the step transform here is type in drag off type Boolean. And then what we're going to do is what we need to do is basically now we've got our Boolean here is we want to intersect something that basically eats away at the end to create the little circle-y type things here. So what we're going to do is we are going to copy this and paste it next to it, and just name this holes. And then what we're going to do is just turn this so it's upright. There we go. And we're going to make it a lot smaller. So say try a 0.1 perhaps, 0.01. Then what we want to do is move this down so it's obviously doing both. So we'll do, I think it's, can we just do that? Can we do a minus 0.5? Actually, better way, what we'll do is we'll go to holes here, just clear that to 0. So now in theory, when we go to that, when we go to this, yep, there we go. So we can see here it's intersecting there. We'll adjust this in a minute. So now what we want to do is copy, right click here, copy to points. Because we want it at each end, we'll use the width here. So then what happens is we'll get 2 at each end here. So there we go. And then what we're going to do is this allows us, obviously, when we move this now, these will always follow, the holes always follow correctly, in theory. We're going to then drag this into the Boolean, and nothing will happen here. So what we do is we go to step, and we just change this from mesh to polygon, and the same with the holes, mesh to polygon. So now we should have, if we have a look, yeah, we got some holes. So what we can do is if we go down to our merge here so we can see the ladder and what's going on. As you can see here, there's no holes. So what we're going to do is we are going to so what we need to do is we need to move this one in which is obviously going to shift this over, and then we need to move this back so that they're equal both sides. So what we're going to do is, rather than use the copy to points, we're going to get rid of copy to points. And what we're going to do is drag off a transform, type in copy, and select copy and transform. So then we'll just slide that in there. And what this is going to do is basically, we can move this along, and what this will do is each time this is extended, it's going to move and add more. But obviously what we're going to do is we're just going to move this along. You can do loads of different things with this. You create like sort of fans, so you can have it equally spaced out to create fan blades, things like that. What we're going to do, I'm hoping this is going to work for us, is that we're going to basically get our width. So go to our width, right click on length and do copy parameter. And then we're going to go to our copy here, and we're going to paste it in the direction of left and right, and we're going to paste that into paste relevant references. So what has happened there? So if we go to our boolean, we now have it correctly spaced as before. So just check that when we move our width, does that still stay exactly the same spaced? Yes, it does. So now what we need to do is go to our merge. So we now need to get this side correct. So what we're going to do here is we're going to go to our whole transforms here, and we're just going to initially move this over so it's correct, so we can see our little holes here. So as you can see, there's far too much. So we can so again, if you hold middle mouse button, this brings up this menu here and how much you want to increment it in. So obviously, looking at our picture, we want it about there, and perhaps a little bit bigger. So we'll just do 1.5, 1.5. So yeah, we've got now like a little bit of weld there. And so now obviously it's not happening on the other side, and the reason being is where we've moved this over, it's also moved everything over that way. But obviously we can't affect this direction because we want it to automatically scale. So what we can do is if we go to the copy and basically go to our transform for the holes, the part where we added the in copy, not holes, transform, sorry, the part where we added our code into basically our reference to the width, and what we want to do is add minus. So what we'll do is we'll go minus, try 0.1, and you can see there now we've got our holes correctly spaced. So depending on obviously what you've got, you may have to play around with the value here. But what this has done is it's basically said, well, we're going to move at the length the width is moving, and then we're going to add -1 at the end. So in theory, when we move the width, it should always stay in exactly the same place, as you can see there. So there we go, we've got our ladder holes. So now what we want to do is perhaps smooth these out so they're not so aggressive. And what we'll do is we will go to after our boolean, basically what we want to do is click on the boolean, which is going to take us back here, and we're going to select our mouse icon, make sure we're on edges, shift click. What's going on there? What is going on? Just make sure that you've got your boolean click there, because sometimes when you're working in things up here, it's working in the previous iteration before what you're working on. So with that selected blue and clicked, we're going to shift click and double click, sorry, and obviously get the bottom as well. Shift double click, then shift over to here, shift double click, shift double click, and then we're going to hit tab. Type in group to group our edges. So now in theory, when we go to our group, everything you see there is grouped. And then what we're going to do is we're going to give this a name. So group whole edges. And we'll do the same with the group up here. Type in GRP. And there we go. So now what's going to happen is when we drag off of this and type in a poly bevel, and slot that in, and we'll go to our poly bevel, and we're going to select here in the drop down, we're going to select group edge holes. So now you can see here, before that everything was selected, but when we select our group edge holes, only these are selected, and in theory when we move our distance, you can see there we're getting a little bit of a bevel. And what we can do is prior to this is we're going to add some edge loops just to stop this. You can see this deformation happening in the mesh here. So we'll just add some edge loops just here. So what we'll do is before our bevel is we will go drag off of, just move this down a bit here, sorry. drag off of whole edges, and we got edge. Have we got any edge loops? Is instead of actually using edge loops, what we're going to use is we're just going to remesh it, because what's happened here is the geometry, basically where we've intersected this boolean, is that the geometry is all a bit of a mess. You know, we've got n-gons going on here where they're not. An n-gon is basically a polygon with more than four points. So you can see here none of these are joined up to anything. So what we'll actually do is drag off the group hole edges here, and we will type in remesh and just slot that in there, and you can see here it's just gone absolutely chaos. And what we'll do is we'll just drag this down to 0, and what you can see here now is we've got these lines correctly connected up, and we're no longer getting the sort of it all creating chaos. It's still a circle here. So now what we can do is, so just check that that is all as we want it, and it is. So now when we see, we've got some holes in there. They've got an edge, so they're not looking as sharp. What we can do is just obviously make sure that it all still works when we move up our height and things like that. So make sure the width is okay. Yep, that's all working okay. And make sure the height is okay. Shift that down. And it is. And just to drag that right down just to make sure what we create with our holes is okay. Yep. So now what we're going to do is just sort of add, or attempt to add, some sort of like cylinder here to simulate some weld of some type. What we'll do is we'll do that in the next video along with a text string to stop these videos being very long. So hopefully, as you see here, we've learned how to intersect booleans using copy to points and creating these holes that we've obviously created, smoothed off the circle edges here with some bevels, and then we've remeshed as well to basically turn our boolean into a usable mesh. I believe when you export, if you exported a boolean in the state it was in before we added our remesh, I believe that when it goes into other programs it turns out really badly. We've used a quick remesh here. You could re-topo manually if you wanted to, but obviously the purpose of Houdini is try and create things procedurally on the fly without having to do that. Obviously we want to be able to use this, you know, in the future in games or in film or whatever you want to, you know, you're trying to learn it for. So in the next tutorial, we'll be adding our little bits of weld and then some textures to it, and then we're done. So if this has been helpful, cheers. Be sure to like, subscribe, and hit that bell, and see you in the next video.